I keep trucking along in this Royal Rumble review series. Today it's time to talk about the 1996 Royal Rumble, which took place in Fresno, California in front of a whopping 9,600 people. It's kind of let you know the state of the WWE's business back at that time, that it wasn't all that good. It just wasn't. Things would get better down the road, but this was a time where things were starting to get bad, and were going to get a little bit worse for this company, no question about it. They were still struggling to find an identity. They were struggling to make big, huge megastars, and you see that a little bit even on this show. But there are some kind of hidden gems here on this show. I will say that. So this wasn't a totally bad Royal Rumble pay-per-view. The first match, you got Ahmed Johnson beating Jeff Jarrett by disqualification. Ahmed Johnson should have crushed Jeff Jarrett. He should have beat him 100% clean. The fact that this match had to end in DQ just says all you need to know about how insistent the WWF and any wrestling company has always been about trying to pound Jeff fucking Jarrett down your damn throat just because he's a promoter's son. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, God. Next match. Next. That's all I got to say about it. The Tag Team Championship match. The Smoking Guns beat the Body Donnas, Skip and Zip. And, this is one of these things here. Maybe I don't really get it, I guess. But I didn't think the Body Donnas were all that good. They weren't my flavor, that's for sure. And, I still don't get where Sunny was all that spectacular. And nobody's really ever been able to sell me on the fact why she's so spectacular. And, I definitely look at the Smoking Guns and I say, yeah, that's the epitome of the corny hokiness, cornball hokiness, if you will, of the WWF in the mid-90s. Ooh, we're Bart and Billy Gunn. We're the Smoking Guns. Oh, my God. What a bunch of flaming bullshit. Next! The match in the middle of the card, though, was something else. Goldust versus Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship. This was a great Intercontinental Championship feud and a good match, and you could tell legitimately that Razor Ramon did not want to work with Goldust. You could see it made him visibly uncomfortable. Here's this epitome of bravado and chauvinism and machismo and cool in Razor Ramon going against this uber freakishly sexual kind of you don't know what the hell he is in Goldust. You didn't know. That was so great about it. When you look at Goldust back at that time, he just made you uncomfortable. And he was just this very sexual, kind of very, psychological wrestler that, made you think about things and make you rethink things and threw you off because he was so over the edge and I feel very controversial and in a good way. It translated into some business for the WWF, no question. And, Razor Ramon obviously was a pretty big star. And like I said, it was a great conflict here between, one type of way of doing things, a more flamboyant way, and then being more abrupt and in your face and macho and everything that Razor Ramon represented. And even though you could tell Razor Ramon really did not want to work with this guy, and you've heard stories later on that he did not want to work with Goldust at all, he ultimately did, and they ultimately put on a very good IC title match. That's the way I look at it. Then we get to the Royal Rumble match itself, which on this show did not main event the pay-per-view, and I could go either way on whether or not it should have. But they went back to doing the every 2 minutes, which I felt was maybe a little bit of an overreaction from the year before where they went every 60 seconds. Again, I still prefer every 90 seconds. That to me is my favorite deal right there, is every 90 seconds when somebody comes in. I think 2 minutes sometimes is a little long, can lead to the event being drug out a little bit too much. It's funny, on the free-for-all, before the show actually began, you had Duke the Dumpster Drazi defeat Hunter Hearst Helmsley by disqualification, and the stipulation of that match was the loser had to enter at number 1 in the Rumble, and the winner got to enter in at number 30. So Hunter Hearst Helmsley entered into this Rumble match at number 1, but that's a good thing because this was still before the curtain call and everything else, where they buried Helmsley for a little while and punished him. And we're pushing Hunter Hearst Helmsley very big here in a very big way. And as a result, having him enter in at number one and last like what 48 minutes, that's the type of stuff, the small stuff that eventually makes somebody a big star. Because if you didn't take notice of him before, you keep taking notice that when this guy comes in and is eliminated, this guy comes in and is eliminated. Hunter Hearst Helmsley is still in there, and he lasted 48 damn minutes. He only took part in one elimination, but it didn't matter. You're starting to set the table for this guy being a star. As far as this 96 Rumble match, it was kind of a shame to me to see where the year before British Bulldog started off in the first two and he went the entire length with Shawn Michaels. The next year he comes back and he lasts 3 minutes and he enters in at the end. That was kind of lame to me a little bit. But you had Shawn Michaels win by last eliminating Diesel. This was an okay Rumble match, definitely not one of the best, probably not one of the worst. You can make the argument, looking back from a historical standpoint, that the right guy won the Rumble here. It was just like Hogan. He won back-to-back Rumbles, or Hogan did it in 90 and 91. Michaels did it here in 95 and 96. So it was definitely the WWF saying that, damn it all, we don't care. We're making Shawn Michaels a top guy, and you're going to like it, live it, love it, and learn to deal with it. It's pretty much what it was. But Shawn Michaels wins, last eliminating Diesel. But it wouldn't be the last we heard of Diesel on this night. Then we get to the WWF Championship match, The Undertaker versus Bret Hart. And this here was a really, really good title match. Probably the right match, looking back, to main event this show. Between two legends, two icons, two all-time greats in Taker and Bret Hart. And, these two guys went out there, had a really damn good match. And even the way the match ended with the interference from Diesel, this was setting up the table for Taker versus Diesel at WrestleMania 12, clearing the way for Bret to ultimately feud with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12, setting up their great historic Iron Man match. So, and those were the two big matches, so to speak, on the WrestleMania 12 card. Even though you did have things like Goldust versus Roddy Piper in the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, which is a personal favorite of mine. But this pay-per-view ultimately was setting up two matches: Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart and Undertaker versus Diesel at WrestleMania 12. And it did a very good job of starting the ball rolling on both of those, which makes this, to me, if nothing else, a successful Royal Rumble, even though from a box office standpoint, it wasn't exactly a booming success, drawing less than 10,000 fans. It wasn't a great pay-per-view buy success by any stretch of the imagination, one of the lowest pay-per-view buy rates of Rumble has ever gotten, I believe. I could be mistaken, but it didn't do that well. I believe this was the lowest of them in a 4 or 5 year stretch in terms of buy rates. It didn't do all that well. But, it did what it needed to do at that time and set the table for what was at least a solid WrestleMania 12 show.